All right, I got the Dave Rubin report. Was reading a video, watching a video on Rumble. Let's get ready to rumble this morning, where Dave Rubin brings on Officer Tatum. Tatum used to be an employee of TPUSA. I was interested in Brandon Tatum's content when he first came out a few years ago. Mainly because he came out and he was a black conservative. He was a vocal, verbal black conservative. That's at that time that was a very rare thing to come across, especially in the media. Was a black man who was politically conservative, and I agreed with a lot of the stuff that he had to say and whatnot. So he was okay, but his content pretty much ended up being like just a repetition of the same things that he always talked about. So I didn't turn against Officer Tatum or say I'm gonna stop listening to his stuff. It's just that in retrospect, I guess you just get kind of bored of hearing the same stuff over and over and over, and you move on to other sources of entertainment, which is a lot of what this sort of stuff is for me. I don't do football or basketball or go fishing or hunting or nothing like that. So this is just recreation for the most part for me. But I mean, Officer Tatum, I'm not anti-Officer Tatum, but what I've noticed in a lot of his content, lately, and it may have always been like this, and I just never noticed it. But because it's not just his content, I find that even on the right, the political left is an inherently feminine philosophy in general. Socialism, communism, progressivism, all of those isms over there are just philosophically on that feminine end of the spectrum because it deals with a lot of emotions and that sort of stuff, among other things. But that doesn't mean that we on the right are immune to this feminine mindset. And even within what I think of as the manosphere, the pro man, the pro men's rights, the patriarchal uh, political sphere, I find that a whole bunch of these men over here that are supposedly anti-feminist and pro-patriarchy end up just really using the same arguments and mechanisms and thought processes as the women and the feminine men do. It's just instead of it slamming men, they're slamming women, but it's the same emotionalism. And so, likewise, I find that a lot of people on the right, like Officer Tatum, Dave Rubin. If you're not familiar with Dave Rubin, he is kind of on the right, but he started out on the left. But he's married to a man and that sort of stuff. So that's an interesting sort of a mix. That he's a gay man married to a man. They adopted some children, but philosophically he's right of center at least. I don't know how far right he goes because I don't follow a whole bunch of his content. I'll watch the Rubin report when I see that there's someone on there where the guest is someone that I'm interested in. You see, but I don't just consume the Rubin report just as a matter of course. I just But I mean, I haven't heard Dave Rubin say many things, and I thought, well, no, that's bullcrap because he is right of center, kind of, sorta, or whatever. So it's natural to expect a gay man to think in the feminine. Not that all gay men think femininely, but I'm saying you shouldn't be surprised by that. But when I look at men like Officer Tatum, who's a former law enforcement officer, he was a former college football player. He went into the NFL draft, which he'll cover in this video. Wasn't selected. Whatever. So you would expect someone like that to be a little bit more masculine in their thinking. I mean, being a law enforcement officer is a lot about problem solving and critical thinking and that sort of stuff. I guess you could also argue that being on a football team is too. You're dealing with hierarchical leadership, levels and progressions of leadership and solving problems, accomplishing a task, winning the day. You would think would be very masculine, but I find that a lot of men on the right, even within the manosphere, which Officer Tatum certainly is not, when you listen to them, they're still very very feminine thinkers for some reason. And we're going to see a lot of that in this video. We're going to see a lot of it. So I'm going to do hopefully I'm going to say a quick reaction video. The video itself is about 43, 44 minutes long. I'm not going to do the whole video. I'm just going to do the first part of it because the topics is pertinent to what's going on in my head right now. But I'm not going to do the whole video. So I don't know how long it's going to be, but I'm going to try to make it pretty quick because I got other stuff to do.
All right, joining me today is the host of the Officer Tatum Show, my old friend Brandon Tatum. Brandon, welcome back to the Rubin Report.
Hey, Rubin, thank you for having me, man.
It's been a long time since you've been on the show, but it's been an even longer time since we've seen each other in person. And I'm wondering if you remember. I think I know the exact last time, and there's a reason I'm asking you up top. Can you jog your brain and see if you can figure it out? We've done a lot of.
My memory is so doggone bad, it's insane. So I don't have a clue, but I feel like it's been a long time, Dave.
It has been a long time. We've done plenty of events together over the years, but I think the last time I saw you or you saw me, and there's a reason I'm mentioning this, was at Candace Owens' wedding. And we were sat between you and your wife and Charlie Kirk and his then girlfriend Erica. And I thought that would be an interesting way to start.
If you don't know, the reason this was all the case, now, Dave Rubin, that's something about draining lymph fluids. This is Rumble. So whenever I pause the video, it's going to do that. Don't know why. I'm not on Rumble a whole bunch, but it's going to do that. And the ad popped up. Well, what in the world is that thing? But it says something about draining fluid. Oh, that's like fluid infested legs or yeah. That's okay. Whew, that was a close one. About draining lymph fluids. One popped up a minute ago that turned out to be the underside of a dog's neck that had a rash, and it says something about this is why your dog's breaking out in a rash. And that thing, all the folds of skin. I was like, oh my gosh, what kind of head is that? And why is it pop? But it was a dog. Anyway, Dave Rubin has never been with TPUSA, but talking about being at Candace Owens' wedding. If you're not familiar with Candace Owens, I know a lot of people are familiar with her content, but maybe not her story. Candace is someone I've been listening to since she first was making videos and posting them on YouTube off of her iPhone back when she was in college, a long time ago. But Candace was also a TPUSA person for a while. She was kind of Charlie Kirk's sidekick. And if you're not following a lot of her content, she's posting a whole bunch of interesting, sensational stuff about Charlie Kirk's assassination and stuff right now. I enjoy her content a lot for entertainment and food for thought. And I enjoy entertaining thoughts in my mind that could be, could be true, could not be true, but it's just kind of an interesting imagination exercise. But when I tell you I follow Candace's content, don't think that I just take it all in and I agree with everything and I think everything she says is true. I just think it's very interesting. I watched Fred Flintstone as a child, but I didn't agree that that you could use an elephant's trunk to wash your dishes through the window. Okay, but I still enjoyed watching the Flintstones. Anyway, so that's why they were at Candace Owens' wedding together, is because they're all Candace and Officer Tatum are TPUSA people, and I guess Dave Rubin is just connected through the industry. I don't know.
At the show today because obviously, to the backdrop of about 2 weeks since Charlie's assassination, everything's been kind of crazy. Candace has clearly gone in her own direction. How do you feel about generally, before we'll get into all the political stuff and everything else?
Keyword right there. I said in a video that I made earlier this morning, I said in a video that words matter, because out of the abundance of a man's heart, the mouth speaks. So you could tell a lot about the philosophical underpinnings of what someone is thinking that they're not actually saying. You can decipher those things if you pay attention to some of the words that they say. This is why some people that engage with me in debates either an informal debate that's supposed to be a debate, or sometimes it's just a casual conversation that kind of turns into a differencing of opinions or whatever. This is why I get accused a lot of, well, you're twisting my words and you're making it out that I said something I didn't say or whatever. And that's because I'm paying attention to what they say. And a lot of times when I say, well, it seems to me like what you're saying is such and such, and they say, well, you make it sound so bad when you say it like that. What I'm trying to do is not just beat them up. I'm not just trying to, swell their eyes up, rhetorically speaking. I'm trying to lead them in a direction to consider the things that they actually believe. Because in human nature, no one who's got a healthy mind wants to walk around and think, I am a psychopath. Or even, I'm just not a very good person. Or the things I believe are wrong. No one wants to do that. But human nature is typically going to track over to the comfortable and the pleasurable, right? She saw that the fruit was good, was beautiful and good to eat, so she ate of it, and she gave of her husband, and he too ate of it. Humans are going to track that direction, you see. But they're not going to say, I'm rebelling against God. I'm about to severely, harm the universe and all of creation and every generation for thousands and thousands and thousands, according to the evolutionists, millions of years to come. They don't think that. They don't think that. I'm a good person. I'm going to eat of this fruit and I'm going to come up naturally, almost like homeostatically, things that go on in your physical body that you don't even think about, but they have to happen to keep you alive. And in your mind does the same things. You come up with these concepts that are crazy, but you don't think, this is crazy, but I'm going to do it anyway, because that would mean that you actually were crazy. No, your mind wraps that craziness up in some kind of warm, soft, feel-good thing, and you don't even realize it. And then you're going through your life and you believe that it's true and you continue doing that because, well, this is normal and natural. And then when you come across someone like me, then what I try to do is express that back to you, stripped of all of that warm, fuzzy, powder that you put on it, to get you to consider, well, maybe that is kind of how I think about it. Well, maybe that is kind of what I'm doing. Because when a human being crosses over that precipice, to be able to think about that and reconcile it, but I never thought about it like that. But that's a pretty good point. Now they're in a position where they can actually grow as a person. You see what I'm saying? They can actually develop and grow and overcome things. So that's what I do. And I do that by paying attention to the words people use, you see, and then concentrating on sometimes on those words and say, well, you said such and such, so it sounds like, you're in this direction. All of that hullabaloo was just for me to notice that Dave Rubin here, what he's asking Officer Tatum is not what actually is, and he's not asking Officer Tatum what he thinks. Because to express your ideas within the words of thought, what do you think about this? I think such and such. That is indicating that you're talking to someone who thinks with a masculine mindset. That's not to say that someone who's a very feminine thinker can't just LARP around and say, I'm going to start saying think, so people will think I'm thinking in the masculine, and then everything else still be very, emotional based. That is possible, but for the most part, when someone's saying, I think this, you think that, he thinks that, what do you think, whatever, you're usually listening to someone who's dealing with a very masculine mindset. The feminine mindset's going to say, how do you feel about such and such? I feel this way, he feels that way. The feeling that I get is. So that's kind of the rule of thumb. No, it's not a hard rule, so don't you send me no comments arguing with me about that fact. But that's what Dave Rubin, that's what he just asked Officer Tatum, is how do you feel?
generally, before we'll get into all the political stuff and everything else, but how do you feel generally about what's going on in our space at the moment and the personalities and obviously losing Charlie and just all the stuff that we're all kind of going through, just like you and I, we go through this stuff real time on camera. It's kind of nuts.
Yeah, Dave, it's perplexing to me. I think I'm starting to lose my mind at how crazy all of this stuff is going. The conspiracies are out of control. The lack of support, love, and commitment, or I would say integrity as it relates to Charlie Kirk, his family, and TPUSA, the
Do you see how what he's doing is he's lumping in Charlie Kirk and Charlie Kirk's family. He's lumping him in with TPUSA. You see, he's not dealing with Charlie Kirk and TPUSA as two different entities, which they are. See, so what he's doing is he's setting up the idea that if you criticize TPUSA or any of its orbiters, like the Daily Wire and the Blaze and Stephen Crowd and all those guys, and Officer Tatum and Dave Rubin, now that I think about it, if you criticize what they're doing in relation to the sensationalism of the murder, well, then you're also being disrespectful and harmful to Charlie Kirk's legacy and to his wife and children. Do you see that verbal trick that they're using right there, where he says, I just think it's crazy how people are treating Charlie Kirk and TPUSA. They tricky. They tricky. That's what the feminine mind does. They tricky.
the stuff that's being said is so inappropriate.
Inappropriate. That's another argument that's not an argument that is used so much by feminine minded people. Well, it's so inappropriate. But are the claims true? Are they true? I mean, you can tell me that I'm a nanny poop. You're just a nanny poop. If you even ask that question, if you even say that, you just a nanny. You're just not a good person. Okay, great, super. I'm a terrible person. Don't invite me to the cookout. Don't give me a gift on my birthday or Christmas. Don't come to my wake. Okay, I'm a nanny poop. I don't deserve your friendship. Okay, I'm accepting that. But is what I said actually true? That's the question. And that's the question the masculine mind is asking. But the feminine mind is asking whether or not, as Officer Tatum said, it's appropriate.
It's so nonsensical to me. Out of just respect for Charlie's life and legacy, I don't understand why people are coming up with these conspiracies. They're coming after Erica. They're coming after Turning Point USA. It's just mind-boggling to me. And I've never experienced anything like this and I haven't been doing this probably as long as you, Dave, but in the last 6 years or 7 years of me doing content online, I've never seen anything so crazy. Also, my support of Israel, I'm a Zionist. People have their own
Okay, I know that some people I know personally that may be watching my content may not understand what he's saying there. When Officer Tatum or anyone says, I'm a Zionist, a lot of people, especially those of us in the lower Protestant churches and people in the lower Protestant churches that may not be educated beyond high school, and I don't mean they don't have a college degree. I mean that I know a lot of my friends and relatives who are smart, intelligent, good people. They love the Lord. But after they graduated high school, the only thing they really actively went in to learn was how to do something to get a job. And maybe if they had a hobby they wanted to begin to, take part in as an adult. But as far as like me, the day I die, I'm probably going to be in the middle of reading something, or I'm going to be in the middle of learning how to do something new that someone else is teaching me to do or something. My mother told me when I was in my 20s, she said, dang, you ain't going to live long enough to do all the things you want to do in your life, which is true. So that's just me. So I am a person who has a love of learning. So you have a love of learning. And that's one reason why DJ and I homeschooled our children, because all 5 of our kids, the smart ones, the dumb ones, the good-looking ones, the not so good-looking ones, all of them, they all seem to have carried into adulthood that love of learning that Deidre and I passed on to them. But not everyone has that. And what Zion is, or a Zionist or Zionism is not something that's typically taught in high school. So for the vast majority of people that graduate high school, then they go get them a job and they live them a good life, but they're not continuing on developing academically or whatever. So they may not know what he means when he says I'm a Zionist, or what Zion is Zionism or whatever. But a lot of those same people are good, God-fearing, church-loving people, and so they've heard the word Zion in the Old Testament in reference to the nation of Israel. You see, so if someone says, "Well, that's Zionism," then that same, average Joe is going to think, "Oh, well, they're just talking about Jews, or they're talking about the religion of Judaism, or something like that, or they're talking about, supporting Jews and their right to not be genocided." You know what I'm saying? That's not what Zionism is. Zion was a word used to refer to the establishment of the nation of Israel, the governmental, geopolitical area of Israel in the Old Testament, but that word was co-opted by Jews some time ago, about a century and a half ago, as a name for a political movement. And I'm not saying that Zionism is right or wrong. I'm not getting into that, so don't be getting my, videos taken down. And, I have several friends who are Orthodox practicing Jews. So y'all don't get to thinking that I'm anti-Semitic. I'm just giving the historical factuals of it all. So the governmental, political, socio-political movement of Zionism is not the same as the group of people who practice or are descended from people who practiced Judaism. Okay? The religion of the Jews is Judaism. And Judaism is not the same as Zionism. You can absolutely, like Officer Tatum here, you can absolutely be a Zionist and support Zionism and not even be genetically a Jew or religiously practice Judaism. It's two different things. And Zionism is more about establishing the almost, I can't say theocratic because it's a secular state. Being a Jew in a way is sort of like being a Muslim, in that Judaism can be a religion and a political system at the same time, just like Islam can be. So, at any rate, so Zionism is just the movement of establishing the socio-geopolitical power of a governmental state of Israel. All right. I'm digressing severely. I know. Hope you don't get bored and click off. But when you hear someone refer to the nation of, that's not necessarily meaning the geopolitical boundaries of a government. Okay. Like, the Nation of Islam. That's not a country. You see, that's not a political state. Do you see what I'm saying? So the nation of Israel is not necessarily that sliver of land that's about the size of New Jersey over there in the Middle East that's headed by Bibi Netanyahu. No, that entity over there is the state of Israel. Okay? The nation of Israel includes every Jew who identifies as a Jew on the planet, regardless of what state they might live in. The Jews that are in New Zealand are still members of the nation of Israel because they're Jews. even though they may not be a citizen of the state of Israel. Well, Zionism is about developing and protecting and advancing the state of Israel, the geopolitical entities, power and existence and all of that, and doesn't really have anything at all to do with Judaism as a religious practice. So when Officer Tatum says, I'm a Zionist, what he's saying is he is a socio-political supporter of the state of Israel and most everything that goes along with it.
As long as you, Dave. But in the last 6 years or 7 years of me doing content online, I've never seen anything so crazy. Also, my support of Israel, I'm a Zionist. People have their own opinions. You don't have to be a Zionist. You don't have to like Benjamin Netanyahu. I would never once go on somebody's page and accuse them of being paid by somebody to have an opinion. I don't go on people's page and talk about their opinions about Israel anyway.
Do you see that this is just more and more and more? See, Dave Rubin did not, there's a reason that Dave Rubin didn't ask him what he thought about what they call conspiracy theories. Okay. This is not a conspiracy theory I'm about to say. Okay. It's going to sound like it, but it's not. You can Google it up and you'll find out this is absolute black letters on white paper documented fact. The term conspiracy theory, conspiracy theorist, whatever, did not exist before President Kennedy was assassinated. After President Kennedy was assassinated, what was that? The Warren Commission, isn't that the commission that investigated his assassination? Anyway, when the CIA testified before the Warren Commission, I'm going to call it the Warren Commission. When they testified, they referred to people in the nation who were developing conspiracy theories, and that was the birth of the term. So the term, when you have someone claim something to be true, and granted, sometimes it's not true. You know, the UFOs are coming out of a hole in Antarctica that go to the center of the earth. I'm pretty sure. I mean, is it possible? Anything's possible. Anything's possible. I could run a marathon. It's possible. It's not very likely, you know. So, I mean, is that possible? Yeah, it's possible. But I pretty much say that those people are just crazy. You know, they just, you know. But so there's no need in debating that out. But someone who might say something that you know may or may not be true, but it's sensational and it's intriguing and it's curious or whatever, you see, they weren't referred to as conspiracy theorists prior to the Warren Commission. That term was brought up because there were so many questions at that time about Kennedy's assassination. You know, like the bullet from Lee Harvey Oswald's rifle must have had a steering wheel on it. You know, bullets don't usually turn corners, you know, like that. Oh, well, that's just a conspiracy theory. So that word was created to shut down the discussion of ideas that opposed the government narrative, to avoid actually explaining away the legitimate, valid facts that the question to the narrative brought up. You see what I'm saying? Like if I told you right now that I was sitting here making a video in my office butt naked, see, if I told you that, you'd say something must be wrong with Dan because I clearly see he has a shirt on. I don't know if he's naked out of frame with a camera, but you know, I can clearly see he's got at least a shirt on, so he might be partially naked, but he ain't butt naked. Well, I guess if I didn't have pants on, I would be legitimately butt naked. But so you know, I am not butt naked. Okay, this office chair is vinyl. It's like fake leather vinyl, and when you're 315 pounds and 54 years old, you know, your nether regions get stuck to stuff if you sit on it butt naked. Don't ask me how I know that. But no, I guarantee you I got drawers on. Okay, but if I told you that, you could clearly do away with my claim by saying, I mean, real easily do away with it by saying, well, no, Dan, you've got a shirt on. What are you talking about, button? You're not naked. So when these conspiracy theories pop up, you see, I mean, the government or whoever it is that's responding to them could easily say, well, no, that's not true. And the reason that's not true is this, but they don't. they'll just throw out, "Oh, that's just one of those conspiracy theorists. Oh, that's just one of those conspiracy theories that people talk about, huh?" And that's what that is the use. It's a feminine tool of violence. The use of shame and insult and nuance and character assassination by saying, "Oh, that person's just a little crazy." See that character assassination, that shame. That Tatum here is using a lot of shame. It's inappropriate. You see, that's the use of shame, but they do that because they're avoiding actually addressing the claims to it. So pay attention.
Yeah.
Majority of what I do is defend myself, and to see people coming out against me, celebrities, people in my DMs, they're making the declaration that I'm getting paid. It's insane to me.
I've seen, I did a quick scan of your Twitter feed right before you jumped on.
Notice what Officer Tatum did not do is offer any proof that he's not getting paid. And what he's talking about getting paid, I'm not into all this, but some of these content creators that are not Zionist, but they're on the right, are claiming that guys like Tatum and the Daily Wire and people like that are actually being bankrolled by the nation state of Israel. If not directly, then through different Israeli billionaires like Bill Acker, I think his name is, whatever. So he's not presenting any evidence that he's not getting paid. Well, the reason that he's not doing that is because it's logically impossible to prove that you're not something or that something does not exist. So the burden in logic falls to the person making the positive claim that something does exist. The burden falls to them to present their evidence and their logical argumentation to show that it does exist or that it is true. So while Officer Tatum here, he can't show evidence that he's not getting paid because that's logically impossible. He doesn't challenge those people to present their evidence that he is getting paid. Wonder why he's not challenging them to prove their case. Wonder why he's not engaging with them and saying, "Hey, if I'm not getting paid, but if you're so sure I'm getting paid, I need to see the evidence to show that." I don't know if he's getting paid or not, but I know that if he is getting bankrolled by Zionists, instead of his content being his own, personal positions and ideas, his own principles, that instead he's just performing the way that his financial backers want him to perform. You see, if that was the case, then he certainly would not want to call out the people to come prove their case that he's getting paid if they possibly could. I don't know if he is or not, but I'm just pointing out the fact that he's talking about these people using the shame, the insult, the guilt, the character assassination, but he's not asking for any kind of actual data or evidence.
And just some of the things, people say horrible things to me all the time, and it's just part of the game. We all know that. But I mean, just saying awful racist, actually racist stuff to you.
And this is and I've made some other videos since the Kirk assassination, so this is no shock. This is no shock to anybody who's watched any of my other videos. Driving me nuts how those of us here on the right have started using all of this language, all of these buzzwords and such, to criticize their opponents. They're using the same language and buzzwords and techniques that the left has been using on us conservatives since the Obama era. I mean, Dave Rubin just rattled off, I don't know how many of them.
Feed right before you jumped on, and just some of the things, people say horrible things to me all the time, and it's just part of the game. We all know that. But I mean, just saying awful racist, actually racist stuff to you. I mean, and these are people that are public people, not just anonymous nobodies, and it's just crazy. We'll get to the Israel stuff in just a sec, but I want a little bit more on Charlie for a moment because we met through Turning Point years ago. As I said, we sat next to each other at the wedding with Erica and Charlie. You were right. You were the urban ambassador for Turning Point. Is that not currently?
No. They dissolved that position and made it just more universal. And so when I left that position, I was no longer employed by Turning Point, but I've been working with them in partnership to do events on campus and all of that ever since
Okay.
then. So I have been working with Turning Point or for Turning Point since 2017 all the way till today.
Got it. So tell me a little bit about your relationship with Charlie and just the human side that you've been dealing with for the last 2 weeks. Because you're right, we've seen. I've tried to avoid a lot of that. The people using it for their own advantage and leaking text messages, all this horrible stuff. But
You see, more use of shame. That it's that little sneaky undercurrent to just police the behavior of other people, but not address the claims and the positions of those other people. It amounts to that's just in bad taste to do that. For shame, for shame, for shame. Let me wag my finger at them. I just can't. The leaking of text messages. They're going to get more into that in a minute. The leaking of text messages. Is what's in the text messages true? I mean, if my brother died and I thought there was foul play and I had text messages from him that indicated that it was possible for there to be foul play, what would be immoral about me sharing those text messages? Nothing. If anything, it would be immoral to not share them and just let the murderer get off, or let some other person, be innocent person, or at least not the person that killed him, be punished for a murder they didn't commit. So the moral act would be to share the text messages from my brother if that was the case. So, but what these people are wanting to say is that there's something immoral or distasteful about leaking the text messages, like there was some kind of a sneaky little insidious plot going on to leak the text messages. It's all of that feminine wordplay that's going on, and these people are on the right. They're supposed to be the masculine thinkers, but that's what he just said. The leaking of it's just so bad that people are doing this, and they're behaving like this. They're just so badly behaved. But it's what they're saying, true or not.
you knew him quite well.
Yeah, I knew him pretty well. You know, Charlie to me was one of those guys, and most people have relationships with people like this where you don't text every single day, but you have that respect mutually, man to man, of when you need me, I'm here. If you ever need things, you know I have your support. I'm fighting for you on my side, and we don't have to text every day. So I don't have a bunch of text threads of me and Charlie going back and forth every day, but we had a really close relationship. There's never been a time that Charlie has ever reached out to me and asked me to do something for him or for Turning Point, and I never said no. He's the only person in the movement that I've never said no to because I respect him. I loved him as a brother. He's always had my back, and I've always had his back. So we had a
This I loved him as a brother, trying to give a masculine, a tip to it all. All of this carrying on here. This is, of course, this is nowhere near an organic conversation between the two of them. All this is with him going on, is he's laying a foundation of some sort of a position of authority to speak on the subject of Charlie Kirk, TPUSA, and the people who are asking these questions that they seem to think are so immoral. He's explaining why he doesn't have a whole bunch of text messages between him and Charlie Kirk. Because we didn't text every day, but we were very, very close and all this kind of stuff, so they could have been like blood brothers. I don't know. But even if they were literally like brothers from another mother, that doesn't mean that what Officer Tatum is going to say about Charlie Kirk's murder is true. And it wouldn't mean that the things that some other people are saying or the questions that they're asking about the murder are untrue. And it's amazing. It's amazing to me how many people over here on the right with us are, instead of using logic and reason and data and research and evidence and information, instead of using that to support the things that they're claiming, they're trying to use their relationship with Charlie Kirk as some sort of debate capital some sort of social capital. Oh no, I was really close to him, and this is what I say that he was like, and this is what I say he wanted, and this is what I say he was doing, and this is what I say happened. Oh, really? Well, I was even closer to him than you were, and I'm saying something different. Oh no, well, I was closer to him than all three of y'all. So what I say is the one that's true. And these are people on the right. I mean, they seem to be abandoning logic in favor of the arguments of the left, which are based in emotion, social behaviors, and those sorts of things, and not actual logic and reason and proof and evidence and so on and so forth. And that's all Tatum's doing right now. That's all he's doing. And in doing that as well, he's trying to pull on the social mechanism of, if you disagree with what I'm about to say, you can't really come at me over it because I was such a good friend of Charlie Kirk. And so, I'm still kind of grieving and hurting, and I'm trying to take up for my friend. So you're a bad person if you come after me for what I'm saying. So it's just disingenuous argumentation, and that's just what he's doing.
Good relationship. So when he died, it was traumatizing for me instantaneously. I mean, I will never forget the moment that my
No.
team showed me, because what happened was Fox called me first. I had no idea that this had happened.
And what he's about to go into is, y'all need to leave me alone and stop challenging me and stop challenging the things that I'm saying or whatever, because let me tell you how traumatized I was and my team was the day Charlie Kirk, we were so close the day he got killed. I mean, my heart goes out to him. Don't misunderstand my irritation at what these people are doing. And it ain't just him. It's a lot of us over here on the right. Don't mistake my irritation with what they're doing to mean that my heart doesn't go out to Charlie Kirk's family and his friends and his loved ones and the grief and mourning that they are going through, even if they're actually on the internet smiling and laughing and going on a world press tour. I mean, my heart goes out to them. Good Lord. What kind of monster would not be sympathetic to that? So I'm not trying to put the dude down with his experience if everything he's fixing to say is true. But I'm just saying that nothing about what he's fixing to say means that the people that are making claims that they think are inappropriate, that what they're claiming is wrong. None of it.
Fox called me and they said, "Hey, we want you to come on the show. Can you come on now? Charlie just got shot." And I was like, "Wait a minute, hold on. I don't want to come on. I want nothing to do with your show right now until you tell me what you mean Charlie got shot. What are you saying to me? Is he okay?" And my heart dropped. Now I saw the video from a distance and it looked like Charlie got shot in the shoulder and he kind of leaned off to the side. And so I was very optimistic about it. I said, you know what? He got shot. He's probably going to recover. Everything's going to be okay. Charlie's going to make it. We'll pray for him. And then obviously the horrific moment that I never saw, but my team saw first, was a close-up shot of what happened, and they literally gasped. And I said, "Don't show me."
Okay, I'm gonna let him go ahead and say this, and then I'll
I
commentate.
can't. I don't even want to see it. I can't watch it. And I went
And
on.
Do you see that feminine slant right there? Do you see and they actually gasped. It's, let me take you into all of the emotional tension and emotional feelings that were swirling amongst my team, and they actually gasped. And I told them, no, don't show it to me. I don't want to look at it. I can't. I just can't look at it. I'm not saying that the dude was not upset. I'm just saying that going in public, like this guy's doing, and I mean, like even in the media, like this, as a man, wanting to talk about how he was so upset and traumatized, and he just couldn't look at it, and this, that, and the other. That is feminine behavior. Well, dang, men need to be comfortable expressing their emotions. And okay, cool. Yeah, I'm not saying that the dude should not be mourning his friend. If the dude wants to go home, cry like a baby or whatever, I mean, that's fine. I mean, I'm not putting the dude down that he was upset, and mourning his friend or whatever. I mean, that's no problem whatsoever. But we are the protectors of the culture. of society, of the community, of our families. So men don't go into public and want to talk about, oh, I just couldn't, I just couldn't, I just couldn't. I mean, that is the behavior of women and feminine men, because that sort of behavior in a woman, oh, I just couldn't bear to look at it, gains her social capital. It shores up her position in the community as far as having a husband to protect her. And it shores up her position in the community as far as being seen as someone who's very empathetic and kind and nurturing and that sort of stuff. That's not the man's role in the community. So he should not go out into the community talking about how he was so upset that, oh, I told my team to protect me from real life because I can't handle real life. I need a protector. That's not the message that men should be putting forth to their team at work, to the community, to the nation. That's the feminine way of thinking and behaving.
You're a former police officer, by the way, so it's not like you're unaccustomed to seeing some terrible stuff.
Well, I'll tell you this. That's one of the most terrible, heart-wrenching moments or things that I've ever seen in my life, even in law enforcement. And I've seen some of the craziest things that you ever seen. But to see what happened to Charlie in front of the world was one of the worst things that I've ever seen. I could not imagine somebody being in person and having to deal with his security team, the video team that was literally watching it happen to him. I can't imagine that. And so I was horrified at what happened. And it really hurt me, man. I mean, on the show, the first time my wife ever seen me cry, ever, was when I cried because of the thought of Charlie losing his life, a young man who had a lot of promise, who was just a good dude. There's a lot of shady and shisty people who have bad intentions in our movement on our side and the other. And those go and act with ill intentions. They hate other people and they project that hate on other people to get clout. Charlie wasn't that guy. If anything, I wanted him to go harder on certain topics with people, but he was a good guy. They went after a decent individual that's willing to bridge the gap with them.
Attention law enforcement. You took an oath to protect and serve.
Lord, let me get rid of the commercial.
Not somebody that's gonna.
All right. Just for the record, this is a little off of the whole, the feminine mindedness of Tatum and Rubin and many other people on our side of the aisle. But something that these people keep doing too when they're talking about the Charlie Kirk murder is they continue framing it as if it were leftists, liberals, progressives, and other various flavors of people on the other side of the aisle, the left, as if they're the ones who murdered Charlie Kirk. Up until now, at the moment, no one really has any actual evidence that we know of to show that it was the leftist, that it was them who killed Charlie Kirk and not someone on the right who needed Charlie Kirk to be disposed of. I mean, the jury is still out, so to speak, even though it hadn't even been convened yet. I mean, that question is still out there. There are all these seemingly so performative, questionable pieces of evidence that the FBI has put out about messages written on bullet casings. I mean, that just, come on, how contrived is that? And then these text messages with no timestamps that sound like they were written by AI, not a 22-year-old, murderer. I mean, it sounds like it had a Harlequin romance AI program write the text messages, where he gives all these just specific details of his crime, his plot, and his crime to his transgendered boyfriend or girlfriend or it friend or whatever. I mean, we have that, but I mean, that's it. The guy hasn't confessed. I mean, that's the only evidence that the police have offered are those two things and some grainy videos that They tell us it's him, but we don't know if it is or not. We don't even know if those videos even came from the college or the neighborhood around it or anything. All we know is the FBI has presented it and told us that it is him. So we don't know that it is him, and we don't know that the dude was a leftist. I mean, well, he was living with a transgender woman, which is a male who's thinks he's a woman. So that makes him a leftist. Well, that's not true. That's not true. If that makes that the shooter a leftist because he's in the LGBT community, well, we have a problem. We have a problem with this dude right over here because he's married to a man and he's on the right. So how is it that the shooter being shacked up with a man in some extremely unorthodox LGBT relationship, suddenly that makes him a leftist? For that matter, we don't even know that he was shacked up with that transgender guy. We don't know. All we know is the FBI says he was. I mean, it just takes a little bit of a study of the history of nations, and specifically the USA, to see that the FBI has been known to do a lot of shady stuff. And that's without even touching on the CIA. I mean, blows my mind how so many people on the right who have been railing against the government during things like the COVID era, now all of a sudden the FBI tells you things that Ray Charles can see does not add up, and they just taking it as it goes. They just, yeah, this is true. Yeah, Charlie was the one who wanted to bridge the gap and meet them on their level and interact with them, and they killed him. They who? I mean, none of this is actual proven fact at all, not even close. But it just fits the story. It fits the story that everyone wants to believe, which is that it's a us against them setup. So if Charlie Kirk was one of us and he got killed, it had to be the other guy who killed him. It's such a shame that the public school system in this country puts so much focus on math, science, and athletics, and got baseball coaches to teach history classes. You almost think they did that on purpose, wouldn't you?
Want to take it the distance with violence. I mean, Charlie was a very peaceful guy. So watching it happen to him, knowing I couldn't get revenge for him, that was my first thought, was like, I'm gonna go down there to Utah, and I'm not waiting for anybody to do. You can't do my friend like this and us not get revenge. But the God in me said, Brandon, slow down a minute. That's not how we fight fire with fire. That's not how we fight fire with fire. Charlie Kirk wouldn't have wanted this. You need to compose yourself, be the voice of reason for the people at a time like this, and let's move forward and let's see how this thing pans out. But it was very heartbreaking for me, and to this day, I'm still confused at times. I have my moments where let's do it. I'm speaking all around the country. I'm fighting for Charlie's legacy. I'm fighting for Turning Point. But then there's times
I'm like, what exactly does fighting for Charlie's legacy mean? What is that? See, she brought me some breakfast in here. See, that's what I'm talking about. Oh yeah, look at that girl. Look at her, girl. God, dog, she wants to keep me fat, so won't no other woman take me. I don't blame her because look at me. I'm a loose cannon, right? At any rate, he said, I'm going around the country fighting for Charlie's legacy. That's another one of those buzzwords that these guys on the right who seem to be wanting to bandwagon and monetize Charlie Kirk's message. Fighting for Charlie's legacy. What does that actually entail? What are the details of his legacy, and what are you doing to fight for his legacy? I mean, it's who knows what that means. That's some of that feminine wordplay, and this is one way that Trump got elected the first time, is using these words that can mean a dozen different things to a dozen different people, but you slide that out there, and each person who hears that word, they're going to understand that you mean the definition of that word the way that they understand that word. So you can end up with a whole bunch of people agreeing with you and supporting your work when those people would not agree with themselves as individuals, but they all interpret those little buzzwords like that how they understand it, so they think that you agree with them, when the fact is you probably don't. It's a manipulative language tactic that the left is well known for using because it comes from the feminine side of the mind, the social managing and that sort of stuff. And so here these guys are, and they're using those same tactics, fighting for Charlie's legacy. What exactly does that mean? Like, how can I fight for Charlie's legacy if right now I wanted to get up from here after I got finished eating all this grub that Deidre just brought me? If I get up from here and I say, I'm going to go fight for Charlie, I need to go put on a fuel selector valve on my diesel truck out here in my F-250. While I'm down there putting that diesel valve on there and that diesel's running out of those fuel lines down my arm, probably giving me Alzheimer's or something eventually, is doing that fighting for Charlie's legacy. When I eat these grits and these scrambled eggs and this shredded up smoked pork over here on this doggone girl, that's going to be good too. When I'm eating that, does that qualify for fighting for Charlie's legacy? I hope to mow my grass before the day is over because it's supposed to start raining tonight. It's going to rain for a few days. And I'm behind on mowing my grass, as my neighbors would tell you. I'm the bad example in the neighborhood when it comes to that. When I'm out there mowing my grass, I'm on that big old bad boy ZT Elite zero turn mower. Am I mowing for Charlie's legacy? What the hell does it even mean? You see, but he can throw that out in anything that he does in relation to anything loosely anywhere in the neighborhood of Charlie Kirk's life or anything. He can defend it by saying this is Charlie Kirk's legacy. My.
Times where I go, wait a minute, this really happened, man. Charlie's
Yeah.
never coming back, and
Yeah.
it's hurtful at times.
That's really well said. I've had the same thing. So there are these moments where I'm like, oh man, I've never been more focused on doing this and let's get in and keep going, go, go, go. And then these other moments where you're like, whoa, this thing just happened. And because we talk about it for a living, and just like you, I was actually on Fox Business when it happened live on air and I saw it out of the corner of my eye while I was on camera. And it's like, man, you almost have to like disassociate. Anyway, well, I'm sure that'll be a bit of a theme of some of the things we're going to talk about. For those that are watching that aren't that familiar with you, can we do the 1 minute recap of our first hour-long interview where you gave me the whole Brandon Tatum bio? Because you have a really interesting story related to how you got into policing and how that kind of woke you up politically, and then we'll get to all the other stuff.
And I hope that people go back and watch that because
Yeah.
I look very different. I think I was probably 50 pounds lighter, and I was still young in the game. You were one of my first major interviews, so it was incredible. But the people that don't know me, I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas. I was an All-American football player coming out of high school, so football was my thing. I went to the University of Arizona, played football there, and my career didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. And I never thought about being a cop, which is my next succession of where I ended up going career wise. I was in the 2010 NFL draft and I didn't get drafted. I had a draft party. My family was there. My agent told me that Oakland Raiders were going to draft me as the only safety in the draft. And they passed on me, man. And it broke my heart. And just rewinding back, during my college careers, when I found Christ, I got saved, and it changed my life, and it helped me come out from under all of the garbage of hatred and resentment and racism that I felt in my heart growing up in the all black community. My first experience with police officers, mind you, was me getting arrested at 8 years old for smoking marijuana in a vacant house. So I had a really diverse past, but going to college, getting away from home, becoming a man, and being saved helped me. And then I ended up joining the police department after doing a ride along and became political, became conservative, went to a Trump rally, went viral, started doing content online. Colin Kaepernick scenario made me even more viral, 70 million views. I joined a conservative organization, met Candace, met Charlie, and the rest is history.
Right. So you were basically early in on some of the beginnings of what shifted culturally, where now, yes, obviously you can be black and conservative. Nobody cares except the lefties. They still seem to care. And judging, apparently some people on the right that are talking to you on Twitter seem to care as well. But for the most part, you were ahead on that, which just shows you the strength of MAGA and all of those things. So you're doing your show now, and you talk about a lot of things that we're talking about. And one thing you've become very passionate about, as you mentioned, is Israel. And I want to throw to this clip. It's from about a week ago. We didn't play it on my show, but I referenced it. You were on Piers Morgan's show, which I go on frequently. It's a bit of a circus. It kind of is what it is. And you were on with this guy, Dave Smith, who basically has made a career of just hating Israel. That's his entire existence. And I thought what you did was quite good because you just laid out truth, not nonsensical talking points, but just truth. Take a look.
All right. Well, I'm not going to get into the getting back and forth about Israel and the Hamas war and stuff like that. Plus, my grits and my egg down here are steadily cooling off. And as you can tell, I ain't real big on wasting food. You know, I kind of like to eat. I consider that a sport sometimes. But at any rate, my point is simply this, that we need to deal with the questions of Charlie Kirk's assassination. Some of these questions are just crazy. I mean, they sound like something out of a movie script or something. They just, oh, that's just a crazy person that's coming up with something. There's no way that that's anywhere likely true. But there are a lot of these questions that really, it's like our Arsenio Hall, it's the things that make you go, I hadn't thought about that. And if you're familiar with history, you can look back at times in history when the FBI, the CIA, and other foreign spy agencies have done similar things, which would tell us that doing them again in the sense of Kirk's assassination, that could be plausible, may not be true, but it deserves to be explored. The thing that makes me even more and more and more and more suspicious that it's possibly true is stuff like this right here, where these commentators on the right are using the tools of feminine violence, shame, insult, guilt to prove their need to be right. R.I.P. Godfather Kevin Samuels. Innuendo, character assassination, gossip, rumors, those sorts of things. Like Dave Rubin just said, talking about Dave Smith, that, he's fixing to be on Piers there, says, he's basically made a career out of, basically beating up on Israel. See, that's that character assassination. That's the insult. That's the shame. Not addressing the claims that Dave Smith makes. No, we're not going to address the claims. We're just going to say that he's just a ninny poop. So anyway, that's my take on it. I'm fixing to eat breakfast. I'm going to get out there and put that diesel fuel selector valve on my F-250. So have a great one. I'm Dane.